It's tier list time. Hello, everyone. Um, and yeah, another video so soon after the previous one. And it's gonna be a Clash Royale tier list this time. Um, yeah. This will be my first Clash Royale video. I've been playing Clash Royale since basically it came out, off and on, but I've been playing it pretty actively for the past almost 6 months. And there were just some balance changes that came out, I believe, yesterday. And I have been waiting to do a Clash Royale tier list for a few weeks now, and I was just waiting for the balance changes for February, and they finally happened. So, it's time for the tier list. Obviously, this is my opinion, and a lot people will have different opinions about the Clash Royale meta than me, just like with Jurassic World Alive. So, without further ado, let's get started. We're just gonna go. I'm just gonna start with whatever is first on the tier list maker. So, starting off with the Wizard. Wizard is amazing. Wizard is top tier, definitely. Um, really good damage. I think it does. I think it dies to Fireball. Does it? No, it doesn't die to Fireball, but it almost does. So it survives Fireball, which is nice. Big damage. Um, Yeah, its range, of course, huge splash radius. Wizard is just a beast. It is really good range swarm counter, and it is undoubtedly S tier. Expo. Expo, definitely the best of the two super long range buildings. It is much better than Mortar. One of the tankiest buildings in the game. It does not do much damage per hit, but it shoots ridiculously fast, and it can hit the enemy's Princess Towers from your side of the river. Overall, it is solid, and I'm gonna go ahead and put it in C tier. It's not that good though. It's just meh. Zap. Zap is S tier, no doubt. It is essential. It is the ultimate cheap swarm counter card. At least that's not legendary. Um, 2 Elixir. It's really cheap. It stuns, so you can reset Infernal Tower, Infernal Dragon, and Sparky with it. It one shots a good amount of swarms. Like it one shots skeletons, bats, and spear goblins. Yeah. Overall, it's just super versatile, super good. Zappies. Zappies are kind of bad. Although that actually brings me to something. Really, the only cards that I see as being absolute just garbage is the F tiers. Because E tier most lists would be pretty bad, but honestly, E tier is just kind of bad, and D tier is really the mediocre ones. Uh, so yeah. In that case, I think Zappy's going to E tier. Yeah. The main issue is that they just get destroyed by Fireball. Um, and it is a neutral elixir trade, but still, that's just kills all 3 Zappies. They do stun, so they absolutely destroy Sparky and the 2 Infernos. Um, they don't do too much damage, and they also attack really slow. Um, they're not terrible, but they're definitely not good either. Battle Healer. Battle Healer is A tier. Battle Healer is great. It is a melee unit. It has, um, it basically it's a melee attacker. Of course, it only targets ground. Um, but it doesn't do too much damage. But that's not its main purpose. For one, it has pretty good health, like really good health for how cheap it is. 17 health on a 4 Elixir card. The main thing with it is its healing. Whenever it hits something, it heals at 101 health to any units around it, any units on your team around it, and of course it doesn't apply to your towers or to buildings. Um, by the way, all these stats I'm saying are tournament standard level 11. So, Battle Healer is really good. It's obviously you do have to kind of play it right to do good with it, but in general, Battle Healer is really nice. Alright, Battle Ram. Where is Battle Ram? There it is. Okay, so Battle Ram, it's, I'd say it's B tier. It did get buffed back in December. It got a bit of a damage buff. It charges. It's a target buildings only. It charges, and it does double damage, 572 if it connects with that charge, and then it basically breaks itself and spawns 2 barbarians under it. Overall, it's solid, but there are better options, like Hog Rider and Ram Rider are just better. Bomb Tower is not very good right now. I'm debating whether to put it in D or E. I'm gonna go with D tier. Yeah, Bomb Tower has it has issues. So my main gripe with it is that it can't target air, which I suppose is for balance, but that also just means it isn't that great. And also its lifetime's only 30 seconds, which isn't too good. 222 area damage is alright, and it's not like frail for a building by any means. And it does have some death damage, but in general, I just can't really get it to work. And Bomber. I think Bomber's B tier. I need to find it on the game so I can look at its stats. Actually, I think it's in a different arena that I don't have in my alt yet, because that's what I'm looking off of. Where is it? I was probably ordering it by rarity. There it is. Okay, so Bomber, it does the exact same damage as the Bomb Tower, although I think it attacks a little bit slower, and it still doesn't target air. But it's 2 Elixir, it is really cheap, and it still has really good splash damage. It is pretty frail, it dies to arrows, and I think it dies to arrows, and it almost dies to log, but in general it is pretty solid, although there are, again, better options. Bowler's also B tier. By the way, when I'm ordering it like this, it's not like actually ordered by power. I'm basically ordering it by rarity, and then by elixir, and then by and then alphabetically. So Bowler is where is it? Right there. Bowler is a ranged, somewhat. It's actually quite tanky. It can only target ground units, and it attacks really slow, but it does solid damage, and it basically just lobs a rock in front of it that pushes through anything in its range. It's just 7.5 tiles projectile range, so it can hit things behind what it's targeting. And it knocks back small and medium-sized units, which is really nice, especially against things like Ram Rider and Battle Ram, and I think Hog Rider as well. Overall, Bowler has a pretty solid niche. Yeah. Cannon. Cannon's D tier. I would say it's slightly better than the Bomb Tower. It is a cheap, very cheap building. 3 Elixir is not much. I think it's tied for the cheapest building in the game with the Tombstone, which we'll get to later. So, it is one of the more frail buildings, 896 health, 212 damage. It does attack quick, but it only targets ground. Mostly it's just a reaction plant as a building. It's used in 2.6 hog decks, and it can be quite annoying, but there are better buildings. Cannon Cart, very close to A tier, but I'm going with B tier. Cannon Cart is really good. It's what you get when you put a cannon on wheels. It's got basically the same. It's basically got double the health as the cannon. So basically, it has 892 health in its moving state. When that breaks, it has an extra 892 health. Oh, that also starts a lifetimer, and that extra 892 health counts as a building, so it doesn't move, but it attracts things that target buildings, and all while doing the same damage as a cannon, and only attacking just slightly slower. Cannon Cart is really good. It's versatile. I almost put it in A tier, but it can't target air, and it's also not really that cheap. But in general, it is very good. Clone C tier. Overall, Mirror's just better than Clone, but Clone still isn't bad. Basically just, it clones whatever cards are in its radius, whatever troops are in its radius, not buildings or spells, obviously, or your towers. And the clone has 1 health, so it dies instantly, but otherwise it is identical to its basic unit. Um, and yeah, that's basically it. It works really well in some decks, and it works really bad in others. It's just fine, I guess. Dark Prince. Dark Prince actually just got buffed in this recent patch to where it can now jump over the river. Previously, I had it in D tier. Sorry, not D tier. B tier. It's A tier now. Dark Prince is that and regular Prince is already better. We're gonna get to regular Prince later. Yeah, yeah. Both of the princes got really benefited from this update. Sure, they lost a little bit of health, but jumping over the river was really nice. Um, yeah. So it's got less damage and less health than the regular prince, but it has a shield, so it can basically like tank a rocket with that shield if you're ever in that kind of situation. It is cheaper than the other prince, and it kind of swarms a little bit more because it has area damage, but it generally does a lot less basic damage. It is pretty solid. It's charge damage 496. That I think that like one shots the like log cards and arrows cards. Yeah. Dark Prince is really nice now. Dark Goblin. Dark Goblin is A tier. They buffed it back in December, even though it was already really good. They buffed its damage a little bit. Dark Goblin is a beast. It moves extremely fast, has really good range, it attacks really fast, does 131 damage per hit, and it does die to log, but, actually does it? I need to check log's damage real quick. That's not what I meant to do. I did not mean to remove it from my deck game. Yeah, it does die to log, but still, Dark Goblin is great. It's 3 elixir, which for its cost, it is strong. Overall, it even if you just bridge spam it, just place it on the bridge, it will still, I believe, get 4 shots in your tower, which totals to over 500 damage, which is really nice for 3 elixir. Dark Goblin is really nice right now, and yeah. Archers are terrible. They're one of the worst cards in the game. Archers suck now. Yeah. Archers are just trash. They do not work for their cost. There's 2 of them. Each one has 300 health, so it almost dies to log, but not quite. 107 damage. On paper, it's really good, but on practice, it just dies so fast without accomplishing much. If it was 2 elixir, it would probably go up to at least D tier, but 3 elixir just does not work for it. Archers in general just aren't good right now. Earthquake, another one that is terrible. Yeah, Earthquake's another one that sucks. It is really just building killer. But in general, buildings are the least used of the 3 card types. Like, spells and troops are obviously needed in every deck. Buildings are not. It does not do very much damage to troops, and there's okay damage to the towers, but really not that much. But it does a ton of damage to buildings. It also slows down troops, but it can't target air. In general, it just doesn't have any real major use. Like, its main use back in the day, I believe, was countering Elixir Collector, but Elixir Collector sucks now, so yeah, there's just no point in Earthquake spell at all. Yeah. Next is Electro Dragon. One of these two. I'd say D tier. Electro Dragon is definitely the weakest of the 3 dragons. It's average health, pretty average damage, really slow attack speed, but it's basically Chain Lightning. It stuns, and it chains onto 2 nearby enemies after attacking the first one. Really, its main issue is it really needs to be with something else to do really good. And also, a really good player could just, if it's like locked onto a Princess Tower, a really good player could put like some small troop in between the Princess Tower and the King Tower, and then the lightning would jump onto that troop and then onto the King Tower and activate the King Tower, which, yeah. Although you won't see that very often, but it does happen. Overall, Electro Dragon is just meh. Electro Giant. Oh my god, this thing is busted. This is the best card in the game. If there was an X tier on this list, it would be in that. This is, in my opinion, the strongest card in the game. Electro Giant is insane. It is extremely tanky, 4160 health, one of the highest, I think it actually has the third highest health in the game, behind Golem and something else. Is it behind Golem and Lava Hound? Let me check. No, it actually has more health than Lava Hound. Is it Mega Knight? No. No, I'm determined to find what has more health in it. I know Golem has more health in it. Golem is extremely tanky. Was it P.E.K.K.A.? I know Giant just got a health buff, but even then, it's not as tanky as Electro Giant. I think it was P.E.K.K.A. No, it is the second tankiest card in the game. Never mind. But the reason it's so OP is because of its little, like, electric thing it has in its back that makes it just zap anything that attacks it within a radius of it. It literally does zap damage to, or almost zap damage to the radius in front of it, and stuns. Basically, anything that attacks it within a certain range around it takes damage, including the tower. That is insane. And on top of it being super tanky, and of course that zap attack, it stuns them. So this thing, it will delete your tower if it stays on it for any extended amount of time. It will destroy swarms, although it will take damage in the process. The main way to counter it is just Sparky and anything that does a ton of damage like P.E.K.K.A. or Mini P.E.K.K.A. or Elite Barbarians. Sure, it's 8 Elixir, but it's just its power makes up for that. Electro Giant is insanely OP. Alright, Electro Spirit. Electro Spirit's D tier. It's the weakest of the 3 common spirits. It's not trash, but it's definitely worse than Ice Spirit and Fire Spirit. It basically just jumps onto something and zaps them, does a little bit of damage, 99 damage, and then it chains onto 9 nearby things. It does not really do enough damage, though. That is my main issue with it, and if it was like, if it did more damage, then it would be nice. And it doesn't stun as long as the Ice Spirit does. So yeah, it generally just, I don't think it's as good as the Ice Spirit. Not even close. It's not too bad though. Electro Wizard, Electro Wizard's S tier. It's one of the weaker cards in S tier, but it is still S tier undoubtedly. It's just its versatility is excellent. It has about the same health as Wizard. It does not do quite as much damage, and it attacks slower, but it stuns. It basically shoots out of each one of its hands, and it can target to do 2 different opponents at once. Although if there's one opponent in its range, it will just just go into that one opponent and do 220 damage. Yeah, it stuns. That's its main thing. It absolutely destroys the Infernos and Sparky. It makes it really hard for tanks, even Electro Giant, to reach the tower. It does get kind of destroyed by swarms, though. Although it also has spawn damage, which is basically zap damage. Actually, no, it actually is zap damage. It's a zap on spawn as well. Electro Wizard is insanely versatile and insanely good. Elite Barbarians, we got another S tier, boys. Elite Barbarians have been OP ever since they buffed. They gave it, like a big buff they gave it a while back. It doesn't move super fast anymore, but Elite Barbarians do so much damage. It spawns 2 of them, and each one does 384 damage. That is a lot of damage. And it also has 1341 health, which is, for something where there's 2 of them, that's a little bit tanky. E-Barbs are so strong right now, and I really wish they had nerfed them by now. Sure, Swarms beat them, but what if they have a log? Cripples P.E.K.K.A.s, destroys tanks, including Electro Giant. Elite Barbarians are insanely powerful right now. Elixir Collector is pretty bad. It is probably the weakest card that is not F tier. It is so close to being F tier. 6 Elixir, and it produces 8 Elixir. So basically you just get 2 Elixir from it, but then it can be so easily stopped by spells to where it's a net negative for you. It's just not good anymore. And continuing on topic of Elixir, we have Elixir Golem, which I'm going to put in C tier. Elixir Golem is a very risky card to play. For one, if you don't have the proper cards to counter it, it will destroy your tower. On the other hand, if you do have to pop a card to count it, you get 4 free elixir after you kill it. So you basically, if you deploy it and they have the right cards to counter it, you're giving them 4 free elixir. Um, it is very cheap though. It's the cheapest like tank in the game, even though you could hardly call it a tank because it doesn't have much health. It also splits 2 times. It splits into 2 Elixir Golemites, and each one of those splits into 2 Elixir Blobs, and it's, of course, targets buildings only. Um, it is a very high-risk, high-reward card. Executioner. Um, I would say Executioner is B tier. Um, it's basically just Wizard, but worse. It's got more health, like quite a bit more health than Wizard. And with the both attacks of the axe, it does a bit more damage, but it attacks a lot slower. And um, overall, Executioner is good. I remember back in the day they like accidentally made its damage insane, and it was busted for about a month. Um, it is a very good ranged swarm counter, but don't expect it to do well against anything that isn't really frail. It's fine. Fire Spirit, B tier. Fire Spirit is the middle of the 3 common spirits, the second best spirit. It's the damage spirit basically. It has huge flash damage, 227 damage that one shots a lot of swarm cards with big splash radius, and that's basically just its thing. Yeah, that's it for Fire Spirit. It's pretty simple. Arrows, arrows are S tier, no doubt. Arrows are basically your main alternative to Zap. For targeting air and ground swarms. It is a little bit more expensive, but it does a lot more damage. It one-shots minions, goblins, archers, princess, bomber, dart goblin. It one-shots way more, and it's also got a bigger radius, but it doesn't stun, so it's not going to reset Infernos and Sparky. Overall, it's not quite as versatile, but it is more powerful. I would say it's side grade from the Zap. Overall, still incredibly useful. Fireball. Also S tier. This is another one of those S tier spells. Fireball is just great right now. One shots a lot of cards. 4 elixir, not too expensive. Fireball plus Zap kills things like Wizard and Electro Wizard and Musketeer. And it also knocks back as well, which is nice. Knocks back small, medium-sized units. Overall, Fireballs are really nice right now. Fireball's really good. Firecracker. Let's go with B tier. If this is a 2v2 tier list, then it would be F tier. It is horrible in 2v2 because as soon as it attacks the Princess Tower, it just automatically activates King Tower. But this is just for 1v1s, so that's not the case. It's pretty decent for 1v1s. Sometimes it can be used to activate the King Tower, but those times are kind of rare. It does a lot of damage, and it also knocks itself back a little bit after it fires, so it basically, likes to troll with really slow cards like P.E.K.K.A. It's alright. It does a lot of damage, does a lot of splash damage, it does attack really slow, but generally it's just like a cheap and frail wizard in a way. Yeah. Fisherman. Eh. I'd say it's C tier. Fisherman is weird. It's basically, it basically just grabs something with, like a ground unit and just pulls it towards itself, which can be used to activate the King Tower if you pull something that only targets buildings, but you have to play precisely right. Does not have very much health, does not do very much damage, and its melee unit only attacks ground. It's generally not too good, but it's not bad either. It's kind of niche. Flying Machine. C tier. Flying Machine is basically just an air musketeer with less health and less damage. That's really it. Yeah. Freeze. Freeze is B tier. It's a spell that freezes for quite a while and does just a little bit of damage. How long does it freeze precisely? 4 seconds. You should definitely bring Rocket or Fireball if you're going to bring Freeze, though. That's really all. Or Sparky, even. if you're going against, if you're going, as long as they don't have air units. Yeah, it is situational, but in this situation, so it's good if you're at like really like 10 elixir and you have freeze plus rocket and you can maybe even tornado it together. It's going to that combo is going to kill every unit that's in the area. Yeah. Furnace is one of the best buildings in the game. Furnace is really nice right now. I would say, if you don't count Goblin Drill, I'd say it's the best spawner. It spawns a Fire Spirit every 6 seconds. I don't remember how many waves in total it spawns, but it spawns a few waves of Fire Spirits, and it's the Fire Spirit spawner, and it's good. Giant. Giant actually just got buffed. It got a very slight health buff, although I don't think it changes its tier. I think it stays in B tier. It is your basic tank. It's got 4,091 health, 254 damage. It just walks to the tower and punches it, or whatever building it is closest to it, and it just punches it. That's all it does. Basic, not really anything exceptional about it, but it's not bad either. Like I said, completely basic. Giant Skeleton. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Giant Skeleton is not bad, but it's not very good either. Does 267 damage per punch. It attacks any ground unit. 3360 health, so it is really tanky. And when it dies, it drops a bomb that does 534 damage to troops and 1068 to towers, to ground towers. So if you get it on the tower, that tower is screwed, and yeah, that tower is just done for. It's going to take a ton of damage from the death. And actually saying that, you know what? I'm actually going to go ahead and bump it up to B tier saying that. Just because connecting to the tower is really nice. Snowball. Basically just Zap, but worse. It is, it's B tier. It's basically Zap. It's not instant. You actually have to, like, throw it from across the map. So it is a bit easier to miss, but I think its radius is slightly larger. I will have to check to confirm, though. No, its radius is the exact same. And it does it does the exact same damage. It slows down instead of stuns, and also knocks back. It does not reset Sparky, although I believe it does reset Inferno because of the knockback, or Infernal Dragon at least. It's just generally worse than Zap. Yeah. Goblin Barrel. Goblin Barrel is... Let's go with B tier. And this is where I now have to change the cropping of the screen, so just give me a second. How do I transform? There we go. Okay, edit transform. Just give me a second, guys. That should be good. Okay. Alright. Let me make sure I got it all right. Okay, we're good. Alright. Next. I actually have to scroll down a little bit for this. Baby Dragon. Baby Dragon is another B tier is completely stacked. Baby Dragon is I think the middle of the two dragons, the three dragons. Better than Electro Dragon, but worse than Infernal Dragon. It's got 1152 health. It does not do much damage, but it targets everything, and it does a bit of splash damage. It's just a generalist, and it's alright. Goblin Cage. Honestly, after the nerf it's got, honestly, it's in D or E. I am not sure, though. It's got to be E tier. It has gotten nerfed way too much. They nerfed the Goblin Brawler by making it travel at a fast speed instead of very fast, and then they nerfed the Cage's health, which means its defensive capabilities aren't quite as strong. Yeah, it is. I don't think it's ever really been good, but now it's just kind of not good at all anymore. Like, it's not even mediocre now. It just lost its use, basically, in my opinion. Alright, Goblin Drill. Goblin Drill is the best building in the game, if you really want to count it as building. Yeah. It's basically just Goblin Barrel, but better. So, I was gonna actually wait till I got to Goblin Drill to actually explain this and Goblin Barrel. So, Goblin Barrel, you throw it usually on the enemy's tower, and it spawns 3 goblins, and they just stab whatever's in sight. And Goblin Drill is similar. You just digs under the ground, pops up wherever you want it to, and then it starts spawning goblins. It spawns every 3 seconds, and has a lifetime of 9 seconds. And when it dies, it spawns an additional 2 goblins. Yeah, it's basically just Goblin Barrel, but better, and it is really good right now. Goblin Gang. I'm gonna say very top of C tier, and I might move something back down from B tier. That something's gonna be Bomber. I'm gonna move Bomber down. And I'm gonna move Giant Skeleton back down as well. Yeah. Goblin Gang spawns 2 goblins and 2 spear goblins and 3 goblins. They're another swarm alternative. It's okay. And Goblin Giant is, I think, if I'm thinking correctly and I'm not forgetting anything, I think it's the weakest dedicated tower targeting tank in the game. It does move faster than the rest, but it is also one of the frailest ones. In fact, I think it is the frailest one. Out of all the tanks that are dedicated to attacking the towers. It has 2 spear goblins on its back, which do attack things in sight, but that is not near as useful as the Electro Giant's shock thing. In general, it's just not very good. Goblin Hut. Goblin Hut is completely average, C tier. It's a spear goblin spawner. Spawns Spear Goblin every 4 seconds with a lifetime of 31. I believe it spawns an additional 2 or 3 Spear Goblins after it dies. It's a Spear Goblin spawner, that's all I gotta know. Goblins, are D tier. It's 3 goblins, basically Goblin Barrel, but you spawn it on your side of the river and it's not a spell. Basically just beta version of Goblin Gang. Golem. Golem is really good. Is the tankiest unit in the game. It has 5,120 health. It does move very slow. It only attacks every 2.5 seconds, but each one of those attacks on whatever building it's attacking does 312 damage. When it dies, it does 224 damage to things around it, and it spawns 2 Golemites, each one having 1040 health and 49 damage per attack, with 99 death damage. It is your absolute tanky tank, and it takes forever to die. You can build up huge pushes behind it because it's slow and it takes 3 seconds to deploy. Although Electro Giant really just does its thing, but better. Graveyard used to be insanely good, but now I think it is C tier. It's another alternative to Goblin Drill and Goblin Barrel. It just spawns a bunch of skeletons. I actually don't remember how many skeletons it spawns exactly, but it spawns them over a duration. It spawns them every 0.5 seconds in a random area of the spell, and it lasts for 10 seconds. It is really easy to counter if you have something like Valkyrie or Poison, but if you don't have something that is geared towards countering swarms, then you're not going to have a fun time. Although it is quite a bit easier to react to, in most cases, than Goblin Drill or Goblin Barrel. Guards. I would say I'm gonna say D tier. They're one of the weakest cards of D tier. They're basically just they're pretty similar to goblins. They have a shield. They do. I think they do around the same damage as goblins. Yeah, they do basically the exact same damage as goblins. Um, their their total health is a bit higher than goblins, but once they lose their shields, they're one shot by everything. Same health as skeletons, and they lose their shields. Um, yeah, the main I would if they costed 2 elixir, they would be all the way up in like C or B tier, but they don't. So yeah. Heal Spirit. I used to have these in E tier, but I'm going to move them up to D tier just because of their versatility when you're pushing with tanks like, or generally just win conditions, like Hog Rider or something. It heals a lot. It's basically jumps on something, does a bit of damage, and heals all any unit, any like troop in the nearby area that's on your side. In fact, it heals 400 health in them. Um, it's I would say it's probably tied with Electro Spirit for being the worst spirit, but it is not too bad either. It is situational, but in those situations, it can't be good. Balloon. Balloon is just completely revamped. Not revamped, but it was reworked in a way. And I would say they are still A tier. They basically got less damage per shot, but like damage per hit, but also they attack quicker. This I think it's basically the exact same DPS as before. It's less deadly when it connects to your tower. It just gets one attack off. But if it stays in your tower, it's basically it attacks extremely fast. Compared to before, at least it does 640 damage, targets buildings, and hits every 2 seconds. 240 death damage after it dies. 1680 health. It's an air unit, of course. So only things that can target air can actually attack it. It is a really good win condition. And the change, I think the change is a little bit of a nerf, but it is still very, very good. Hog Rider, another A tier win condition. Um, and yeah, Hog Rider is really nice. It's your basic really fast win condition. It moves at a very fast speed. It can, of course, jump over the river. 1696 health and 318 damage. Attacks every 1.6 seconds. Targets buildings. It's better than Battle Ram. And if it connects to your tower and gets more than one hit off, that damage will add up pretty quickly. But it can be easily countered. Like, put a P.E.K.K.A down and it's just going to absolutely decimate the Hog Rider. Or, like, put, like, a Army down. Yeah. Hunter. I would say this... It is very close to being A tier, but I'm going to put it in B tier. Hunter got a very slight buff in the balance changes that just happened. It's a dude with a shotgun, and each pellet does 84 damage to 10 pellets. So if it's at point blank, that's 840 damage. Attacks every 2.2 seconds, 838 health. Basically, it decimates tanks. Actually, there used to be a thing where if it attacked an Electro Giant at point blank, it died instantly because it's 10 projectiles all hitting it. But now it counts as one projectile against an Electro Giant, so now it counts as Electro Giant. It does really well against swarms. It destroys destroys things that get right next to it, unless it's a P.E.K.K.A, because then the P.E.K.K.A's just gonna kill it in like 1 or 2 hits. Overall, it's good. Yeah, Ice Golem is D tier. It's a tank that really isn't a tank. It does not have much health at all. Let me find it. There. 1197 health. It attacks every 2.5 seconds. It, of course, targets buildings. 84 damage per hit. It does not do any damage. 84 death damage in a splash radius that slows things. It is not meant to actually do any damage to towers. It is meant to purely just tank for whatever you have behind it, or also divert things like P.E.K.K.As. And in the hands of a really good player, it can do really well. I am not a really good player, so I do not perform very well with it. Yeah, it's just niche. Ice Spirit, the best of the spirits, and the first A tier common. Um, it's one elixir like all the other spirits. It when it jumps on something and in the splash radius, it freezes for 1 second, does 110 damage. Like the other spirits, but it freezes, and it does flash, unlike the Electro Spirit, which does chain. And it does a bit more damage than the Electro Spirit. Um, yeah, that's the Ice Spirit. Ice Wizard is B tier. Ice Wizard before the December balance changes was C tier, and then they gave it a bit of spawn damage, which brought it up to B tier. God, I'm low on battery in my iPad, like really low. I need to turn the brightness down. So 3 elixir, it is cheap. Um, it does get one shot by fireball. It does very little damage, but it slows, and it's got splash damage, and its spawn damage also slows. It is not meant to actually kill things. It is meant to just slow, and slow, and slow. Although it is the weakest of the 3 wizards. Infernal Dragon is A tier. Infernal Dragon, in my opinion, is the best of the 3 dragons. It's basically, it is your tank, it's the tank killer, unless it's against an Electro Giant. Although it can still beat Electro Giant, if you play it just right, it can stay out of the zap range of the Electro Giant and actually kill it. Gets destroyed by things that stun, like Electro Wizard and Zappies and Electro Dragon and stuff, but otherwise it's going to melt tanks. It does get wrecked by swarms as well. If you can connect it to that, like, P.E.K.K.A. or Mega Knight or something, then that P.E.K.K.A. or Mega Knight will not be lasting for very much longer. Because once it gets its beam fully charged up, it's doing 423 damage every 0.4 seconds. So basically, when the beam's fully charged up, that is 1,057 damage every second, which is a lot. And I believe it's also the tankiest of the dragons. 1294. What's Baby Dragon's health? Yeah, it is the tankiest of the 3 dragons. Although it's still not very tanky. Invader Tower is also A tier. It is the last of the 3 A tier buildings. Right there. And they just buffed it, and I don't know why. It was one of the few buildings that actually countered Electro Giant if it managed to stay locked onto that Electro Giant. As soon as the Electro Giant gets in its range, then it just melts the Electro Giant before the Electro Giant gets its zap radius over the Inferno Tower. It's basically an Inferno Dragon, but it's a building, and it does a lot more damage. The buff they gave it is where it retargets on units a bit faster, and it also charges its beam a little bit quicker. But when the beam is fully charged up, that is 2120 damage per second. Ouch. Yeah. And that's Inferno Tower. Knight. This is your completely basic melee card. And it is... I'm gonna say C tier. It is extremely basic. 1666 health. It is relatively tanky. 202 damage, 1.2 attack speed. Its DPS isn't too bad. Of course, stacks on ground units. It is very basic. There's not much more to say about it. It is pretty cheap, though, for its stats. Lava Hound is C tier. Okay, I'm not gonna bother with zooming out the page anymore. So Lava Hound is your air tank. It is not meant to kill towers, and at least the Hound isn't. It's 54 damage and attacks every 1.3 seconds. That is not going to do damage to your tower. If it connects to the tower, don't worry. It won't be doing doing much damage at all until it dies, when it splits into 6 lava pups, each doing 90 damage, attacking 1.7 seconds. That may not seem like much damage from the lava pups, but there's 6 of them. If they all connect to the tower, that damage adds up fast. But generally, Lava Hound, it's okay. It has really good decks around it. Lava Loon used to be insane with Lava Hound plus Balloon. I don't know how that will be affected by the new balloon changes, though, but Generally, it's just an okay. It's just okay. Lightning is almost A tier, but I'm gonna go with B tier. Lightning is a big damage spell. It strikes three things in its radius. It strikes the three things at the highest health in its radius. So it attacks the tankiest and second tankiest and least tankiest, and like not max health by the way. I mean to like current health. 1056 to troops, 317 damage to towers. Stuns a little bit. It is. It absolutely deletes, like, if they have a big push that is just full of a bunch of small, medium health units, like, or, like, tanky to kind of tanky or medium health units, you know what I mean. It's just gonna destroy three of them, and it can be, it can, it can be value. If they have, like, a mini P.E.K.K.A. and then a wizard and then, like, a dark goblin, it's going to, I think it's going to it's gonna one shot the wizard and the dark goblin and leave the P.E.K.K.A. a mini P.E.K.K.A. really low, and that is value. But don't use it against swarms; it won't do anything against them. Bandit. Bandit is B tier. Bandit's a solid legendary. She's just dashes onto things from a certain range, and while she is in her dash, when she's like moving with her dash, she is invincible and can't take damage. Although her dash can be stopped if you like stun her while she's charging up the dash. The dash damage is 387, base damage 193, attacks every second, 97 health. It can dash pretty far, although absolutely suffers against swarms. Don't try to use it against swarms. She's not just gonna die. Yeah. Although there's a champion card we'll get to later that is just Bandit, but better. Lumberjack. Lumberjack is a beast. 4 Elixir. Runs very quickly. Attacks every 0.8 seconds. It does 302 damage per second. And when it connects to the tower, that can add up pretty quickly. It's really good. 1282 health. And when it dies, it drops a rage spell, which means it is a really good, like, opener for a push. It drops the rage spell, and whatever other troops of yours are in the area are just going to be rage dropped, and they're going to move and attack quicker, which is a lot. Yeah. Lumberjack's really good right now. Magic Archer. One of the worst legendaries right Magic Archer is not good at all. 532 health, dies to zap plus arrows, I believe, and of course dies to fireball. 134 damage, checks every 1.1 seconds. It's like a piercing arrow. It has 7, and the base range, like the sight range when it starts attacking something, is 7. Yeah, its projectile range is 11, so it pierces 2 things. Counters swarms, but does not do much damage to anything else. And it's really frail. 4 Elixir is not good for it. If it was 3 Elixir, it would be better. But 4 Elixir just doesn't work for it, and it is not good at all right now. Mega Knight. Mega Knight is insane. S tier, definitely. It is really tanky. It's got 3,993 health. And it targets all ground units. When it spawns, it does an area damage to ground units. Actually, does it? I don't think it attacks air with its spawn, but 537 on spawn is a lot. And it does basic area damage, melee, to 268, and then it has a jump, which is kind of like the Bandit's dash, although it's not invincible during the jump. It can still take damage during the jump, although it can't really be stopped mid-jump. 537 damage on the jump. That's a lot of damage, and it's big splash radius on the jump. Mega Knight is so strong right now. One of the most annoying cards in the game to face. Sure, it gets absolutely wrecked by P.E.K.K.A., but in general, it is a P.E.K.K.A. alternative that does better against swarms, but isn't quite as OP at taking out tanks. Mega Minion is B tier. Mega Minion's a pretty solid rare. It let me find it. It's a tank killer. It does 311 damage, attacks every 1.6 seconds. It's an air unit. It attacks at anything Does not do well against swarms. Don't use it against swarms. Don't use it against like air attackers that do good damage, like wizard. They're just gonna decimate it. Although if it manages to actually hit the wizard, it'll cripple it. 837 health, so it almost dies to fireball. Generally, it's just a solid air tank killer that is in the air. Why is it not charging? Hold on. There we go. Yeah, that's Mega Minion. Miner is another. It's another alternative to Graveyard, Goblin Barrel, and Goblin Drill. I would say it's better than Graveyard, but worse than the other two. It's at the bottom of B tier. Let me miners up here. So 1210 health, 193 damage to troops, although in buildings, except against ground towers it only does 58, so it is not going to do any damage to ground towers, not much at all. It's mostly meant to be like a diversion to tank for, say, like a Hog Rider or something, or Graveyard or Goblin Barrel. Yeah. It's alright, I guess. P.E.K.K.A. Or not P.E.K.K.A, Mini P.E.K.K.A. They just buffed this thing, and I don't know why. It was it was pretty high in A tier. Its buff wasn't enough to put it in S tier, though, but I still don't get why they buffed it. They buffed its attack speed to where now it attacks every 1.6 seconds. And with how much base damage it has, that's insane. 720 damage, so it's got 450 damage per second, 1361 health. Moves fast. It gets absolutely destroyed by swarms and air units because it can't attack air, but bring a log or a zap, those swarms are gone. And it's just going to destroy your tanks. If it connects to the tower, it's going to do a ton of damage to the tower. Destroys, like, unsupported range units that you put in the back. It one-shots wizard. I think. Yeah, it does exactly enough damage to one-shot wizard. I think it one-shots Electro Wizard as well. Mini P.E.K.K.A is a beast. It is pretty close to being S tier. Minion Horde, B tier. Minion Horde used to be a lot better, but now now with Fireball being very, like, meta right now, Fireball absolutely counters it, and so does Wizard. But it will melt any tanks that get in its range, unless it's Electro Giant. Electro Giant's just built different, though. So, each minion, it spawns 6 minions, each one has 230 health, and 102 damage. It attacks every 1 seconds. That is going to melt through the health of whatever it's trying to kill. But it is easy to counter. Wizard annihilates it. You can get a positive elixir trade by going Fireball, or even better, you get even better positive elixir trade by going Arrows, and it just kills all the minions. High risk, high reward. And now we just got Minions, which is the same thing, but it spawns 3 minions instead of 6, and costs 3 elixir instead of 5. And I think these are also B tier. Not quite as risky, but does not melt through things quite as quickly. Otherwise it's the same. Mirror. This is a very weird one, and it is B tier. Mirror, it's really doesn't have a set cost. Basically, when you deploy something, like a card, unless it's a champion, the next, then if you have mirror in rotation, or like mirror is in your hand right that second, right at that time, or at least like after you deploy that card, if mirror is in your hand, then you're able to mirror that card for the same cost as that card plus 1 elixir, but it mirrors that card to be 1 level higher. Yeah, it's you can do a lot of things with it, honestly. Sometimes it can be an absolute waste, but sometimes it can be really nice. I think it's better than Clone Spell, though. Mortar is trash. Almost F tier. Almost. It is a lot worse than Expo. Let me find it real quick. So it has a little bit less health than Expo. It does splash damage, and it's got the same range where it can hit towers on the other side of the river. It does 266 splash damage, and it attacks every 5 seconds. That is not good. It can get... It can, like, sometimes It gets to a point where it does not even get one, does not get a second hit in the tower at all, even if it manages to target the tower. Mortar is just so bad right now. Anyways, Barbarian Barrel. Surprise, surprise, another B tier. Actually, you might put it C. No, yeah, it's C tier. Yeah. Barbarian Barrel is a log alternative. We'll get to log later. So it only targets ground things. It's a spell. You can only play it on your side of the river. Basically, it's a barrel that goes on the ground for it a little bit that damages anything in its path, doing 241 damage. And then it spawns a Barbarian at the end of that. Yeah, it doesn't reach the tower, though. Although Barbarian will get a hit in the tower if it is left ignored. It's just log, but worse. It doesn't even knock back like the log does. Yeah. Mother Witch, the worst legendary in the game. Mother Witch is so trash now. They nerfed her back in December, and she was already one of the weak, she was still the weakest legendary then, but just barely. And then they nerfed her health to where she now gets one shot by Zap and Arrows combo. Which, why? Why did they nerf Mother Witch? Mother Witch was already not good, and then they just made her horrible. She's not as bad as she was when she came out. Because when she came out, she literally didn't even I don't even think she one-shot skeletons. But 532 health, I think that's the same health as Magic Archer. Yeah, it is. So, yeah, 133 damage. Basically what she does is after whenever she attacks, there's a curse put on it that lasts for a few seconds, 5 seconds specifically, and if that unit dies when the curse is still active, then a cursed hog spawns from the unit on your side, and that hog has 629 health and 53 damage, attacks every 1.2 seconds, and only targets buildings. There are very few decks where she can do really well, or actually against players that over-rely on swarms, Mother Witch can do really good. And against anything else, Mother Witch is awful. Mother Witch just generally doesn't work. Musketeer. Musketeer just got buffed. Got a slight hit speed buff. And I think that actually brings her up to A tier now. Obviously the very bottom of A tier, but still A tier. Musketeer, I don't really think she needed a buff, honestly. Yeah, she attacks every 1 second now. Yeah, and 218 damage per hit, so that's 218 DPS. 720 health, so it does not die to Fireball, same health as, like, Wizard and stuff. It does get destroyed by Swarms, which is why it's lower than Wizard, but in general, Musketeer is good now. Like, really good now. Nightwitch, another really weak legendary. I would say it's tied with Magic Archer for being, like, the second worst legendary. Nightwitch is not bad. It's just very mediocre. Definitely worse than the basic witch, but better than the Mother Witch. This is a melee unit, unlike the other two. She spawns bats every 5 seconds. Spawns 2 bats. Bats are basically just skeletons bent in the air. 907 health and 314 damage. Of course, melee unit. Actually, has pretty long range for a melee unit. But it just dies too quickly, though, in my opinion. Yeah. P.E.K.K.A. is, in my opinion, the second strongest card in the game. What was that? I think my Alexa thought I was saying that was whatever. Yeah. P.E.K.K.A. is the tank that ends every other tank it sees. 3760 health and 816 damage. Those stats speak for themselves. And 1.8 hit speed. Gets decimated by swarms. And I guess Infernal units as well. But generally, destroys a lot more. Destroys so many units. One-shots so many viable units. One-shots Electro Wizard. One-shots Wizard. Two-shots Elite Barbarians. Two-shots Lumberjack. Two-shots Mini P.E.K.K.A. One-shots Musketeer. One-shots Dark Goblin. So good. Mini P.E.K.K.A. is so strong. Mini P.E.K.K.A. of course. P.E.K.K.A. is so strong. Poison is A tier spell. It is a Fireball alternative. It's not quite as good as Fireball, but dang it, it's close. Um, Poison is definitely more geared for beating up swarms. It basically it lasts for 8 seconds, and anything in its radius takes 91 damage per second, and Crown Towers take 28 damage per second. And they also get slowed down by 15% while in that radius. And then after they leave that radius, they'll still take a couple more ticks. Yeah, that's Poison Spell. It's pretty good. Prince. Prince is so close to being S tier after the buff he got. He didn't even need a buff. He was already a beast. And then they made it to where he can jump over the river and only gave it a slight health nerf. 1920 health, 392 damage, 784 charge damage. Destroyed by swarms, but destroys basically everything else except for air units, because of course can't target air. Connects to the tower. Ouch. Especially with that charge. Yeah, and he can jump over the river now. Yikes. Honestly, after putting some more thought in it, maybe at some point I probably will bump him up to S tier. Princess is B or C. Let's go with B. Princess is kind of like Exo and Mortar, but it's a troop. More like Mortar, but a troop, and also way cheaper, and also better. So 3 Elixir. Hold on. Someone's calling me. Whatever. So 261 health, gets one shot by log and arrows. 3 attacks every 3 seconds. Does 169 area damage attack. Very huge splash radius, and she's the only troop in the game that can target the arena towers from the other side of the river. Or I guess she's actually on the bridge, but out of the arena tower's range, she can target them. The only troop that can do that. But again, high risk, high reward, and usually they only get 1 hit on the tower before they get noticed and killed by a log. Rage is I would say Rage is C tier. It's a spell. It's basically what the lumberjack drops and it dies, but it's just the spell. In fact, it's actually identical. Basically, boosts the attack speed and move speed, and also the summon speed for things that summon, and for any troops in buildings, in its radius. It lasts for 8.5 seconds, and it boosts the stats by 35%. Yeah. It's pretty basic. Ram Rider, A tier. Ram Rider is really nice. It's a Hog Rider alternative, and there's some differences. For one, Ram Rider isn't always very fast. Just, she has, normally she has a move speed of 15. I need to find her. Why did I say 15? Medium move speed, normally. Oh yeah, Ram Rider's in the boosted card, I forgot. But charges very fast. 532 charge damage, 266 basic damage, only targets buildings. 1767 health. That's the ram part. The rider, rider forces on top of the ram, and she basically bolas anything in sight that isn't a building, up to a pretty far range, and basically the bola reduces that unit's speed, by 85%, I believe, and it lasts for 2 seconds, and also does 104 damage, and she basically tries to make sure everything's bullet, but there's only 1 unit in range, she's just gonna keep hitting it. Yeah. Man Rider's really nice right now. And, of course, like Hog Rider, she can jump over the river. Rascals. C tier. Rascals it's basically archers and knight in one. So, they're the 5 Elixir spawns 1 Rascal Boy and 2 Rascal Girls. The Rascal Boy has 1830 health, 133 damage, and attacks every 1.5 seconds. With of course medium move siege, melee, yeah. But he's basically just meant to tank for the Rascal Girls. The Rascal Girls are just archers, but better. A little bit less health than archers, but a lot more damage. 133 damage at the 1 attack speed. Yeah. Pretty easy to counter, but still not too bad. Barbarian Hut is B tier. The most expensive building in the game. 7 elixir. But it spawns barbarians, and that's actually pretty good. It spawns 2 barbarians per wave. 1166 health, so it spawns 2 barbarians every 11 seconds, lasts for 40 seconds, and yeah. Or we'll explain what each barbarian has once we get to barbarians, which we'll get to soon. Rocket. Rocket's B tier. It's similar to lightning in that it does a ton of damage. I don't think it's as good as lightning, but it is still pretty solid. It does more damage than lightning, and it doesn't have the like strike thing. It's a splash radius, although it is a pretty small splash radius. It also takes a while to get over to its destination, so you have to time it right. But when it hits, it does 1484 damage and 446 to crown towers. Yeah. I don't think it doesn't knock back or stun though. At least I don't think it knocks back. Royal Delivery is, in my opinion, the worst card in the game. Royal Delivery is so terrible. So it basically it's a spell you can only deploy on your side of the map. There's 437 damage to anything in its radius, and it's most Royal Recruit. Each Royal Recruit has 532 health. Also has a shield on 33 damage melee unit. The main problem with Royal Recruit, so Royal Delivery, is that it takes literally forever to spawn after you deploy it. You have to wait like 3 seconds. Like you put it down, then wait 3 seconds, and it finally comes down. Which means a lot of times it's just wasted. Royal Delivery is so bad. If it was 2 elixir, that'd actually be worth it, that delay. But no, it is not worth that delay, and it just hurts it so much. Royal Ghost. Yeah, I'd say B tier, but almost A tier. Royal Ghost is pretty unique. So it's he's basically invisible and can't be targeted by anything. And then as soon as he gets to something, like he targets anything that isn't an area unit. And as soon as he gets to something and gets his first attack off, he goes uninvisible and can't be attacked. Attacks are 1.8 seconds, 261 damage, has slight splash radius, melee unit, so can't target air, and 1210 hit points. Yeah. Can be countered, like, a good player will know, yeah. If you manage to get him on the tower, though, without him being attacked, that's pretty nice. He's almost guaranteed, unless he's, of course, lured by something, he's basically guaranteed to get tower damage. Yeah. Royal Giant is A tier, and near the top of A tier. Royal Giant is basically a giant with but holding a cannon and is ranged. That is not what a Royal Giant is. Let me go up here. So Royal Giant is it's less health than Giant. It has 3,072 health, but it has 5 range and does 307 damage. Still only targets buildings. It's kind of hard to avoid getting tower damage unless you have a building, just because it's got a lot of range and it does good damage. Royal Hogs, they just nerfed the Royal Hogs a little bit. Royal Hogs, I already wasn't really a big fan of them. They're B tier. I think they nerfed the damage just slightly, but I'm not entirely sure. 74 damage, attacks every 1.2 seconds. Spawns 4 of them. 837 health, so it does get like wrecked by Fireball. So each one's left really low. And they all target buildings only. Yeah. And they all move really quick. The alternative, like Hog Rider or something, but I think it's worse. Royal Recruits. C tier. The most expensive common in the game. So, yeah. It just spawns a line of 6, like a line, horizontal line. 6 Royal Recruits, and yeah, 7 elixir. It is very expensive though. Overall, it's just okay. Skarmy, absolutely essential and S tier. Skeleton Army is great. In fact, it's absolutely amazing. It is the best swarming in the game by a wide margin. It spawns 15 skeletons for only 3 elixir. Of course, each skeleton doesn't have much. It's 81 health and 81 attack. But Shurk gets easily countered by like Log and Zap, but 15 skeletons is just super useful for how cheap it is. 3 elixir. Skeleton army is so nice. Skeleton barrel is not, though. So skeleton barrel is kind of like balloon. That's an area in it that goes to whatever like the nearest building is, and but it's not like balloon, where instead of like continually attacking it, it basically, as soon as it gets over it, it basically breaks itself and does 133 splash damage, and that also happens, I believe, when it just dies, and it spawns 7 skeletons. Very easily counterable. It has 532 health, so if it's like like air attacking unit, it's not gonna last long against them. Skeleton Dragons also kind of suck. Yeah. I don't know why they decided to make Skeleton Dragons this week, but they did. There spawns 2 of them. Each one has 532 health. They get one shot by Fireball and killed by Zap Arrows combo. Their units, 161 damage, attacks every 1.9 seconds, so the DPS is horrendous. And it does have a splash radius, but it's a very small one, so you're not going to be countering very many swarms. So easy to counter, and just really bad. Skeletons. I know I'm going to get yelled at for putting them in E tier, but they're E tier. They suck. It's 1 elixir, just spawns 3 skeletons. Sure, it is a cycle card, of course, and it can like foil many P.E.K.K.A.s and P.E.K.K.A.s, but it doesn't do much outside of that. No, it does barely anything outside of that. It just dies. They die super quickly. They don't do anything. Skeletons suck. Be happy they're not an F tier. Barbarians. Barbarians are A tier. They're actually really good. No, they're B tier. They do get counted by Fireball pretty quickly. Also, I don't know why I put you there and it's pretty right there. So, it spawns 5 Barbarians, or melee units. Of course, they can only target ground. 670 health with 192 damage per Barbarian. Gets destroyed by Fireball, but in general, can be pretty good. If they all attacking one thing like a tank, then that tank is gonna get melted. Sparky. Very close to being S tier. Sparky is so strong. So it's a ranged unit, but it only attacks ground. It basically it has a charge system, so it can't be reset by being stunned or frozen. 1331 damage when it gets that attack off though, and it's ranged and splash. 1331 damage is a ton. That is the highest damage in the game. Outside of Rocket, the highest damage of game of any troop or even for buildings. Sparky is insanely good right now. Spear Goblins suck. Yeah, Spear Goblins just suck. Sure, they're range and spawns 3 of them, but for 2 elixir. But the range damage is horrible, and they get one shot by Zap. Enough said. Tesla. I used to think it was really bad, but it's really annoying to fight against, but when I use it, I'm not very good at using it. C tier, for me. They did buff it, they nerfed it back in December. They nerfed the attack speed a bit, and I still don't know why. So it's a building. It basically hides in the ground until something gets in its range where it springs up. It can only be damaged by Earthquake spell when it's underground. So it does 2 to 30 damage per attack, attacks every 1.2 seconds, and has 1151 health. And a 30-second lifetime. Unfortunately, I really wish it's stunned. It would be so much better if it actually stunned, because it's like lightning and like electricity, but it doesn't. Log, S tier, without a shade of doubt, S tier. So it's like Barbarian Barrel where it rolls and you can only play it on your side of the map, but it can reach the tower. Of course, it doesn't spawn anything at the end, but it does something cooler. It can knock back any ground unit in the game that touches any ground troop. It can't do anything to air. It does damage buildings, but it doesn't like just knock them back, of course, because they're buildings. 290 damage, 87 of the ground towers, and it damages anything that's the ground in it, and it's bad. Just the fact that it can knock back anything that it touches is crazy useful. 3 Musketeers. Honestly, I think they buffed the buff they got. The Musketeer buff also applies to these, of course, and I think that bumps them up to B tier from C tier. So, Three Musketeers is the most expensive card in the game, 9 Elixir, and it spawns 3 Musketeers. It's a Magic Musketeer, but there's 3. Will melt through the HP of anything that it's targeted on, unless of course it's a swarm, because they do get countered by Sparky. But they get wrecked by like fireball, and lightning, and stuff. Yeah. Overall, high risk, high reward. Tombstone, C tier. This is definitely a spawner that's not meant to actually do anything to the tower, but rather is just meant to stall. It is, I think, the frailest building in the game. 530 health. Yeah, that's really low for building. Spawns 2 skeletons every 3.8 seconds with a lifetime of 30, and spawns a few more skeletons when it dies. Yeah, it's basically meant to be a building that supplies a swarm, basically. Tornado. C tier. Tornado spell, it's basically just drags any unit that's in its range towards the center of it. I don't think I have it. Where is it? There it is. It does, it lasts for 1 second, does 330 damage in that, and pulls anything in its radius towards its center, and does 558 damage to crown towers. Yeah, basically you just, it's more of a defensive option than anything. You can just drag it to, you can, like, if there's a, say there's like a giant on, or say they actually use like a Goblin Barrel or something, or a miner, and on your Princess Tower, you can drag that miner over to your other tower. Like you could put the tornado next to the King Tower, and that'll drag the other that unit over to it, and which will activate the King Tower, which is pretty nice. But outside that, not too useful. Valkyrie is A tier. Valkyrie is very versatile. Well, probably not. First off, probably isn't the right word, but still very useful. So it has a lot of health, 1992. I think that's around the same as the Prince. 267 damage, and it does a splash radius of literally everywhere around it that isn't in the air. It's a melee unit. It doesn't attack air. It absolutely decimates swarms, but against something like a P.E.K.K.A. or a mini P.E.K.K.A., it's not going to do well. Wall breakers. In my opinion, they're probably the weakest epic in the game, but I think they're still D tier. They're not bad. Yeah. Wall breakers, they target buildings. There's 2 of them. They just hold like explosive barrels, and they just sprint towards the nearest building. And each one does hold on. Once it connects, each one does 392 area damage, and it also affects any troops in the area around where they explode. And 2 of them, they are very easy to counter. They are very frail, and they don't do anything if they don't like explode when they die. If they die, but they do die as soon as they reach that tower and blow up. Yeah, that's what they do. Yeah, they're not very good, but I wouldn't say they're too bad either. They're just very easy to counter. Which I would say is B tier. It's a range unit, range slash damage unit that spawns skeletons. So 838 health, 134 damage per attack with area damage. Spawns 4 skeletons in a circle around her every 7 seconds. Yeah, can be really annoying to fight against if you don't have very many swarm counters. Wizard decimates her though. Bats. D or C? I'm gonna go with C. Bats are basically air skeletons. So that spawns 5 bats. They're very, very similar to skeletons, except they're in the air, so less units can target them. And they have slightly less attack speed than skeletons, but faster move speed than skeletons. Yeah. Yeah, it's just bats. And now we get to our 3 champions. Archer Queen is the first one. I believe they just nerfed her, but she's still A tier. Archer Queen is, so let me explain how champions work first. So you can only have 1 champion in your deck, and you can only have 1 champion on the field at a time. And they also have abilities that you can activate using Elixir. So, Archer Queen, let's go over the base stats first. So, range damage, basically like a Musketeer, but on crack. 1,000 health, 225 damage, attacks every 1.2 seconds, and yeah. Really, Archer Queen is just completely carried by her ability. Her ability basically means she goes invisible for 3 seconds, and she attacks 3 times as fast during that boost. Which means her DPS during that 3 seconds is 675, and she can't be targeted except by spells. So yeah, although that ability has a cooldown of 15 seconds, and it costs 1 elixir to activate. So that's a really nice ability, and it just melts through anything it touches. Golden Knight is the other champion that also got nerfed, although I still think he's A tier. So he's a melee unit, only attacks ground. 160 damage, attacks every 0.9 seconds with 2,000 health. His ability is a dash, kind of like the Bandit, but on just better. 1 elixir to activate. So basically, cooldown of 11 seconds. Anything that's like the closest thing that's 5 tiles in a 5-tile radius in front of him, he dashes onto it. Then he dashes into anything like the next thing that's closest to it in 5 tiles, and then onto the next thing. And you can do that up to 10 times, doing 310 damage to each one. And it can do that to tower. Sure, if a really good player could use that to get the King Tower activated, but that's pretty rare. Yeah. And even if you activate that ability when he's not in range of something, he's just gonna go fast and just start sprinting until he's in range of something. Golden Knight's a beast. They did nerf his dash distance. I believe it's a 6-tile dash before, and it also had a split shorter cooldown, but still. Skeleton King is the weakest of 3 champions, but he's still pretty solid. He's a melee unit with a splash damage, 205 area damage, attacks every 1.6 seconds, 2,300 health. He's the tankiest of the 3 champions. His ability is more complicated though. So there's a cooldown of 20 seconds. So basically, when a unit dies on the field, when he's like on the field, it basically charges a meter, and when you activate the ability, depending on how far the meter charge, it'll spawn a bunch of skeletons. So if the meter has no charge in it, it'll spawn 6 skeletons. If it has full charge, it'll spawn 20 skeletons. Yeah. And it costs 2 elixirs to activate that. Overall, he's alright. Now that is the tier list. So I'm just gonna slowly scroll down through the tier list. You can pause the video while I'm scrolling through it if you want to. Hope you guys enjoyed. I've been waiting for a while to do this. I've just been waiting for the February balance changes to happen, and they happened. So, yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed. Subscribe and like if you want to, and I will see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.